Good day, Sophomore Flames. This is Ma'am Marge, and we are back. Yes, we are back again with another week of new lessons for Gen 006 Ethics, starting off with Module 7 and Module 8, entitled Culture and Values, Roles in Moral Behavior, and the Cultural or the Filipino Culture and Values, Strengths and Weaknesses, a reflection and self correction. So these two lessons mark the beginning of the second periodic grade. So you can take note of the starting lessons, okay, that covers your P2 grades. Okay, so now let's proceed to our discussion. Alright, so before we proceed with the actual discussion, first off, we have here the lesson objectives for Module 7. And these includes, okay, at the end of the lesson, you will be able to understand how morality is shaped and influenced by other cultures and values. And you should also be able to write an essay describing your own culture and values. And we also have here the lesson objectives for Module 8, and that is to, all right, at the end of the lesson, you will be able to know the Filipino culture and values, as well as their influence to our human conduct and morality. And you should also be able to write a reflection describing Filipino values. Alright, so let's have the discussion proper on our Module 7 and Module 8 for Gen 006 Ethics. Okay, so this is again Module 7, which is Culture and Values, Roles and Moral Behavior, and Module 8, the Filipino Culture and Values, Strengths and Weaknesses. Okay, so when we talk about culture, okay, so it refers to cumulative deposits of knowledge, okay, experience, beliefs, values, attitudes, meanings, hierarchies, religion, notions of time, roles, spatial relations, concepts of the universe, and material objects and possessions acquired by people or by a group of people in the course of generations through individual and group striving. Okay, so these are, customs and ideas, okay, and it's like everything that man thinks, says, and does. Okay, so at the moment that you are born, okay, you are born into a certain society, and that society has their own sets of culture. Okay, so sometimes, okay, and most of the time actually, all right, you are being born into that culture. Okay, so a culture is a way of life of a group of people. Okay, so and culture consists of patterns, explicit and implicit, of and for behavior acquired and transmitted by symbols, okay, constituting the distinctive achievement of human groups, including their embodiments and artifacts. Okay, the essential core of culture consists of traditional ideas and, especially their attached values. Culture systems may, on the other hand, be considered as products of action, on the other hand, as conditioning influences upon further action. Okay, and again, when you talk about culture, it's the sum of total of the learned behavior of a group. Okay, so when you talk about a group, it pertains to the society that you belong to. Okay, and are transmitted from generation to generation, considered to be the tradition of that people, and it's being passed down from one generation to the other. Okay, so that's culture. All right, and it's actually derived from the Latin word cultura, okay, which means growing or cultivation. Okay, so when you talk about culture, these are behaviors, ideas, okay, and behaviors, ideas, and the behavior of certain groups that belongs to a society. All right, now, and also when we talk about culture, okay, this is applicable to human beings, all right, and our culture shapes the way we work and play. Okay, so whatever we do, whatever we decide to do, okay, it's most of the time being influenced by the culture that we have learned. Okay, kapag may mga ginagawa tayong mga bagay-bagay, or mostly the things that we are doing are being influenced by the culture that we have learned in our society. Okay, and it makes a difference in how we view ourselves and others. Okay, so sometimes there are certain biases. Let's say, for example, you met a person for the first time, okay, and before you even talk to that person, you already have a lot of assumptions, because based on your culture, okay, all right, you tend to judge a person based on what you have learned in your culture. So let's say, for example, if you meet a person, okay, that that's who's wearing a clothing that is different from your culture, you tend to label those people as someone who's very different from you, okay, and you tend to move away. Parang nilalayuan mo yung mga ganong klase ng tao kasi hindi mo sila kapareho ng kultura. Okay? And this is how the society we live in influences our choices. But our choices can also influence others and ultimately help shape our society. Okay, so sometimes when you make decisions for yourself, sabi ko nga kanina, it's being influenced by the culture that you lived, okay, or the culture that you have learned in your society. Okay, so culture really plays a big role in your life. Okay, so it's not just simply a culture or a sets of norms or sets of behavior. Okay, it's actually governing, okay, the way you live. Okay, it's actually governing the way you live, the way you interact with others, everything that you do. Okay, it's being influenced by the culture that the culture that you grew up with. Okay, so that's what you mean by culture. Now, when we talk about culture, okay, it also affects our personality. That's why personality is one of the products of culture. Okay, so culture therefore influences the manner we learn, the manner we live, and the manner on how we behave. Okay, the manner of our behavior. Because of this, okay, many theorists believe that culture is an important shaper of our personality. Okay, one of the general assumptions asserting the effect of culture to personality is that people who are born and bred in the same culture share common personality traits. Okay, so let's say, for example, tayong mga Ilocano, right? They said Ilocanos are very thrifty. Okay, which is quite quite the same for people who are Ilocano. So regardless of the place that we were born, if we are Ilocano, say let's say, for example, I am from Pangasinan, but I'm also an Ilocano. There are also some people who are Ilocanos in La Union. Okay, but they said that if we belong into a certain if you are born into a same culture, okay, even if you are in different places but you are born in the same culture, then most probably you have same personal traits, okay, or same personality traits. Okay, so that's how that's how culture affects our personality. Okay, so the way we live, the way we learn, the way we behave is being influenced by the culture that we grew up with. Okay, so when we also talk about culture, okay, there's also a term called cultural relativism. Okay, so this is when you talk about cultural relativism, okay, different cultural groups think, feel, and act differently. So, kung may iba-ibang klase ng kultura sa ating society, okay, they will also uh, think, they will also act differently from one to the other. Okay, so there are no specific standards, or there are no scientific standards for considering, one group as intrinsically superior or inferior to the other. Okay? Maraming mag-aaway dyan kapag sasabihin nila superior daw ang kanilang kultura. Okay? Studying differences in culture among groups and societies presupposes a position of cultural relativism. Okay? It does not imply normalcy, okay, for oneself, or nor for one society. Okay? It, however, calls for judgment when dealing with groups or societies different from one's own. Okay, so information about the nature of cultural differences between societies, their roots, and their consequences should precede judgment and action. Negotiation is more likely to succeed when the parties concerned understand the reasons for the differences in viewpoints. Okay, so walang sinasabi dito na, there's no scientific explanation or scientific standard that defines that this particular culture is superior to the others. Okay, it's more of the fact that even though we have different sets of cultures with other people, okay, there's still understanding, there's still one unifying principle, okay, that coincides different cultures. And I think that's respect. Okay, if everybody has respect for one another, okay, regardless of differences in culture. Okay, so I think there is still a possible relationship that might happen. Okay, not a hindi yung klase ng relationship na parang I feel superior or you feel inferior. No, okay, it's because you have respect for each other's culture that you tend to live together in harmony. Okay, all right. Now, when we talk about culture as well, okay, there are some certain claims, okay, that the people who study cultural relativism are saying. They said that different societies have different moral codes. Yes, okay. So since in different societies you have been exposed to different sets of culture, okay, and that really affects what kind of morality you believe in. Okay, because different societies have different cultures. Okay, of course they would have different moral codes. Okay, so for other societies wherein slaughtering animals is a no-no, okay, for some others it's considered as a part of their tradition. Okay, so different societies and different cultures with different moral codes. Okay, so the moral code of a society determines what is right within that society. Okay, so kung ano yung moral code ng isang society, so that applies to that particular society. Okay, so that is, if the moral code of a society says that a certain action is right, then that action is right at least within that society. So ibig sabihin, kapag yung concept ng morality sa isang society, okay, will determine what is right and what is wrong. Okay, at least that's true for that particular society. All right. Now, but then, okay, of course, it doesn't mean that if that moral code, okay, or if that morality is true for that society, it doesn't mean that it's true for other kinds of societies. Sabi ko nga kanina, different societies, different cultures, different moral codes. Okay? Now, there's no objective standard that can be used to judge one's society's code as better than the other. Sabi ko kanina, there is no scientific standards that tells us that a certain culture is superior or inferior to the others. Okay? There are no moral truths that hold for all people at all times. Okay? So, ang culture, hindi niya sinasabi na ang isang society, na isang particular society, if they have if they have sets of moral codes, sila na yung pinaka superior. Okay? Because each and every different society has their own different moral codes. Okay? Hindi natin pwedeng i-compare. Okay? This is parang hindi natin pwedeng pag-compare na kung sino ang mas superior at sino mas inferior, because in the first place they are different from one another. Okay? So the moral code of our own society has no special status. Hindi ka superior, hindi rin inferior. It is but one among many. Okay? Walang point of comparison because they are different. Okay? You cannot really compare them because there is no similarities with the moral codes of different societies. Okay? So, yeah, it's very arrogant for us to judge other cultures. We should always be tolerant of it, or we should always be respectful of, we should always be respectful of other cultures, much that are different from ours. Okay? So, let's say, for example, you go to a certain place, you are new to that place, it's the first time you've been there, and you have noticed a certain action of the locals there that make you question if that action is morally good or not. Okay? But since you are new into that society, you are baguhan ka sa society na yan, and you're not familiar with the culture that they are practicing. Okay? So it's a must for us to be tolerant and be respectful to other kinds of culture, to other people's culture. Okay? Because it's totally different from your own. Okay? And the way for us to live harmoniously with each other is to respect and be tolerant of other people's cultures. Okay? Hindi mo man maatim sa sarili mo na tanggapin ang yung kung halimbawa it's not morally good for you. Okay? Hindi mo man maatim, pero since that is their culture, that is what they have been born into. Okay? So you have no right to judge those people just because they have different culture from you. Okay? So those are the claims of the people, okay, who are studying cultural relativism. So again, when you talk about cultural relativism, okay, a person follows a certain set of behavior, okay, within the society that he or she was born into. Okay? At least, okay, pag may may natutunan siyang mga culture dun sa society na kung saan siya naipanganak, okay, at least that person will act, okay, based on what he or she have learned within that society, and he will deem it as true for him, at least within the society that he belongs to. Okay, so that's cultural relativism. Okay, now when we talk about culture, it also affects, okay, our values. Okay, and values dictate what is important. Okay, so if we have the concept of morality, we understand the concept of morality. Okay, it will dictate what is important. They serve as a guide for the ideals, and behavior of members of a culture. Most of the people, okay, that are born into a certain society will be engaged into a certain culture. Okay, and in that culture, they will inculcate as well the different values they have learned from the previous generation. Okay, so as guided by its values, culture can be seen as a dynamic system of symbols and meanings that involves an ongoing dialectic process where past experience influences meanings, which in turn affects future experience, which in turn affects subsequent meaning. Okay? So since pasa-pasa, okay, pasa-pasa yung kultura na yan from one generation to another, the culture and the values are being represented by system of symbols and meanings. Okay? Parang mga paniniwala, superstition. Okay? So we we have been introduced into those superstition through meanings and symbols. Okay? So, diba sabi nila, pagka may mga pinaniniwalaan kayo mga pamahiin. Okay? So, those are symbols, those are meanings, okay, that has been passed down from one generation to the next generation. Okay? So, that's culture and values. Now, this time, okay, so this is actually a transition from module 8 to module 7 to module 8, okay, so this is actually module 8, and this talks about the Filipino culture and values. So we're going to talk about Filipino culture and values, their strengths and weaknesses, and you are also going to do a reflection and self-corrections. Okay, now when we talk about Filipino culture and values, okay, so the Filipino values and traits are, what sets the Filipinos apart from the rest of the group. Okay, so because we have certain values and traits that that gives us an identity apart from the rest of the world. Okay, so these characterize us in a way that we stand out wherever you place Filipinos. Okay, so kahit saan sa mundo, alam mong Pilipino yan kasi pag nakita mo silang, if you see their actions pa lang nila, okay, the manners, the behavior that they exhibit, alam mo na talagang Pilipino yan. Okay, all right. So the Philippines is a culture in which East meets West. All right, and the Filipino people have a distinct Asian background with strong Western tradition. Yeah, so parang tayo yung one of the Eastern countries that has a lot of Western influence in it. Okay, so the modern Filipino culture developed through influence from Chinese traders, Spanish conquistadors, and American rulers. So if you're gonna ask what kind of culture Filipinos have, okay, it's really hard to pinpoint because we are a mix of different kinds of culture, because there are a lot of different kinds of people who came to the Philippines and do business with them or be under their rule. Okay, so first and foremost, we have a business trade with Chinese. Okay, even before the Spanish came into the Philippines, meron na tayong relationships with the Chinese in terms of mercado and trade and business. Okay, now so in that case, okay, since we already have relations with the Chinese when it comes to trade and business, okay, so we are being influenced with their culture. Okay, now here comes the Spanish, okay, who conquered us for 300 years. Okay, so 300 years of occupancy here in the Philippines, it's bound to change our culture one way or the other. Okay, so 300 years nagstay ang mga Spaniards dito sa Pilipinas. Okay, there is, and well I think they had shaped a very big percentage of the culture that we are exhibiting now. Okay, and here comes the Americans. Okay, here comes the Americans. All right, so we are actually what we call a salad bowl of different cultures. Okay, Philippines is a salad bowl of different kinds of culture. Okay, so if you pinpoint exactly what kind of culture we have, it's really hard to say. Okay, because we are a mix of different cultures because of the people we have interacted with. Okay, now for the Filipino culture, okay, let's talk about the different cultures that we Filipinos are exhibiting in our lives. Okay, so our culture is a big reflection of our great and complex history. Okay, it is influenced by most of the people we have interacted with. So sabi ko nga kanina, we have interacted with the Chinese, we have interacted with the Spaniards, the Americans. So yung influence ng kanilang culture directly affects us. Okay? So we are a blend of the Malayo-Polynesian and Hispanic culture with the influence from Chinese, Indians, Arabs, and other Asian cultures really contribute to the customs and traditions of the Filipinos. Okay? So first and foremost, one culture that we are born with, okay, or we are born into, okay, is the culture of mano po. Okay, so the common gesture used to greet is known as mano, okay, often referred to as bless, okay, in English. Okay, mano is performed as a sign of respect towards elders and as a way of accepting a blessing. Okay, so mano is a Spanish word for hand, okay, and that's why you are kinukuha mo yung kanang kamay, your right hand with the right hand of the elder, okay, and then you place it, against your forehead, and that signifies that you are receiving a blessing from your elders. Okay, so it is usually done towards those who are older by 2 generations or more. Okay, so that's mano. Okay, mano is hand, while po is used in the end of the sentence when addressing elders or superiors. Po at opo. Okay, now another culture that we have is the culture of the Filipinos being very hospitable. Okay, so this is the most common terminology that describes how Filipinos welcome foreigners or tourists who visit the country. Okay, so this trait of the Filipinos towards their visitors is undeniably exceptional. Talagang hindi naman may kukumpara. Okay, the way we exhibit our hospitality to other people is very exceptional. Parang feeling ko walang ibang lahi ang mas hospitable kaysa sa atin. Okay, as biased as it may sound, okay, but I think Filipinos are the most hospitable people on earth. Okay, all right, and this trait of whenever a visitor stays in a Filipino home, okay, there will be a feast, o diba, may handaan kapag may bisita kami, maghahanda sila, or grand celebration, as it is somehow a tradition for us to prepare bountiful Filipino cuisine for guests to have a taste of our culture through our food. Sabi nga nila sometimes, a certain society's culture by their food. Okay? Sabi nila, may nabasa akong gano'n. Sabi nila, a culture of a certain society based on the food that they serve you. O, diba? Sabi. Okay, tayo mga Pilipino mahilig kumain, right? Okay, so that's the spirit of hospitality. Now, this one, okay, this is the culture that we have. It's the close family ties. Okay? So kahit, 'di ba, usong-uso sa Pilipinas yung compound. 'Di ba, pag sa bahay, sa mga tirahan, right? And usong-uso diyan ang mga compound because we really exhibit close family ties as much as possible. We don't want to be that far from our families. Okay, so usong-uso sa Pilipinas yung tinatawag nating compound. Okay, nandun yung nasa kabilang bahay lang, nasa nakatabing bahay lang yung bahay ng tita mo, ng tito mo, yung mga pinsan mo. Alright, nandun kayo sa isang compound. Okay, so that's because in our culture we have close family ties. Okay, so the it's one of the outstanding cultural values that we Filipinos have. Okay, so we really take care of each other, okay? And we were taught to be loyal to the family and elders by simply, obeying their authorities. Okay, so that's how, that's how we value the concept of family here in the Philippines. Okay, talagang parang as much as possible, you don't want to be away from them for too far. or sometimes nga, di ba, kapag yung may mga family members na nag-abroad, it's really hard for them because of the close family ties that we were born into. Okay? Alright, so that's one Filipino culture. Another culture that we have here is the spirit of bayanihan. Okay, so the bayanihan spirit shows Filipinos' concept of helping one another, okay, most especially in times of need without expecting anything in return. Ito naman yung sinasabi nating talagang diwa ng bayanihan. You help those people in need without expecting something in return. Pero kasi ang iyang ganyang concept now, alright, there are some people who help because they were expecting something in return. I mean, they don't verbally say it, okay, but the thinking of some other people is that when they help someone, they are expecting that person will also, do something for them in return. Okay, so Filipinos strongly believe in helping their kababayans, okay, so the fellow countrymen, okay, in any possible way they can do to extend a helping hand. It is, a very beautiful Filipino mentality of helping one another. Pero sana, I mean, we really think of the true essence of bayanihan. Yung talagang tutulong ka na hindi ka nag-expect ng something in return. Okay? So that's one of Filipino culture. Another Filipino culture is this, harana, serenade. Okay? So, during the olden days in the Philippines, the tradition of harana, okay, so which is a musical serenading outside someone's window. Okay? This is a very popular event. Okay? So although harana has traditionally been used for a variety of purposes. Okay, the most common practice was for, suitors to woo their sweetheart through a romantic song. So, usually pagka, mga after dinner, tapos pupunta sa bahay ng kanyang nililigawan, okay, and they will sing. Okay? Most of the time, itong si manliligaw, tawagan ng kanyang mga tropa, kanyang mga friendships, and they will, sing. Okay? The manliligaw will be the main singer, and the friends will be the backup singer, something like that. Okay? So that's the Filipino culture of harana. Okay? Now, another culture that we have, okay, talagang hindi mawawala to, marami tayong mga ganyan, okay, it's the belief of the Filipinos in superstition, pamahiin. Okay, so there are several different beliefs and practices that play an important role in our culture and every Filipino person's day-to-day life. Okay, so some of these beliefs are said to bring either good or bad fortune. Okay, and we Filipinos are a very good example of those who believe in, sabi ko kanina, pamahiin. Okay, we have it in our blood, passed on to us by our grandparents, the parents, and even the people we meet outside of our families. Okay, so marami tayong mga superstition. Let's say, for example, a very good example of a superstition that we practice until this moment is when you are building your house and you have staircases, right? So the number of steps of staircases at home should not be divisible by 3. Okay, they call it the oro, plata, mata. Okay, so because oro is gold, plata is silver, and mata is dead. Okay, so dapat daw when you walk into or go up and down the steps of the stairs, okay, dapat habang bumababa ka sa mga steps, you recite the oro, plata, mata, and dapat daw hindi magsa-stop yung steps sa mata because that's death. Okay, so malas daw yun. All right, what else? We also do this. Okay, so you don't go straight home after attending a wake. Okay, so magpagpag ka muna daw, okay, para hindi daw maisama sa bahay yung kaluluwa. Okay, all right. And also we also have this you reassure your host that you are human. Di ba kapag pumupunta ka sa mga bahay at kakatok ka sa pinto, sabi mo, tao po, okay. Contrary to what we actually believe, contrary sa paniniwala natin actually, sabi nila, pag nagtatao po daw, para sa iyo yun, para matanong kung may tao doon sa loob ng bahay. Pero hindi daw, mali daw yun. Hindi daw ganun ang ibig sabihin ng tao po. You are doing tao po, you are saying tao po while knocking on another person's door. Okay, this is for the other person on the other side of the door to know that you are really a person who wants to enter and not some kind of magical creature or entity. Okay? So, magtatao po ka daw para ipaalam dun sa taong pupuntahan mo na ikaw ay talagang tao at hindi isang maligno or engkanto. Okay? Alright. And sometimes, and we also have this one, okay? So, siblings should not marry within the same year. Sukob daw yun. Malas daw. Okay? So, kapag pag magkakapatid kayo, okay? Dapat iplano nyo kung kailan kayo ikakasal. Dapat walang ikakasal on the same year. Alright? Okay, so that's Filipino culture and superstition. Alright? Now, there are some elements of the Filipino culture that that can be considered as our strengths. Okay, and here are the lists of elements that strengthen the Filipino character. So first and foremost, we have a lot of joy and humor. Sabi nga nila, ang mga Pilipino daw, they find joy and humor in practically almost anything. Okay, so it's a parang a way siguro ng mga ibang tao in order for them to be hindi naman sa makalimutan ng mga problema, pero it's a way to lighten their burden. Okay, that's why we Filipinos have a lot of joy and humor, because despite the problems that we are facing, we still have a positive outlook in life. Okay, so that's one character of the Filipinos that really gives it's our strong point. Okay, what else? Flexibility. Okay, Filipinos, flexibility, adaptability, and creativity. Okay, so Filipinos have a great capacity to adjust kahit saan mo ilagay yan. Okay, makakapag-adapt yung Pilipino na yan kahit saan mo siya dalhin. Okay, so they are able to adapt to circumstances, to their environment. Okay, unplanned or unanticipated events are never overly disturbing or disorienting, as the flexible Filipino adjusts to whatever happens, come what may. Okay, so ang mga Pilipino madaling mag-adjust, very flexible. So come what may, kung ano man ang dumating, malulustutan. Okay. Another thing that is a strong point of the Filipino character is that we are hardworking and we are industrious. Okay? So, Filipinos have the capacity to work hard given proper conditions. Okay? Ang mga Pilipino, masipag yan sa trabaho basta tama ang compensation. Okay? Alright, the desire to raise one's standard of living and to possess the essentials of a decent life for one's family, combined with the right opportunities and incentives, stimulate the Filipino to work very hard. Sabi ko nga, if you really have a concrete goal in mind after you finish college, okay, so you will be able to fulfill that goal. Okay, because why are you studying college? It's for you to be able to graduate. It's for you to be able to pass the board exams. It's for you to be able to land that dream job of yours. Okay, so if you have a certain goal, if you have a definite goal in mind, okay, so that will prompt you to work hard to reach that goal. Okay. Another character that's one of their strong points is faith and religiosity. Okay, so Filipinos have a deep faith in God. Maybe because this is the influence of the Spaniards, okay? Because the Spaniards are the proponents of the Catholicism here in the Philippines, and due to us being occupied by them for 300 years, okay? So I think we have developed, okay, a deep faith in God, okay? So religiosity enables us to comprehend and genuinely accept reality in the context of God's will and plan. Since we are exposed, okay, to the Catholic religion, okay, and the concept of God, okay, so we are, most of our actions, lalo na kung religyoso ka talaga at talagang you really have a deep faith in God, I mean, everything that you do will all to all to God's will and plan. Alright? And lastly, okay, one of the strong points of the Filipinos, okay, is the ability to survive. Yes. It goes hand in hand with the flexibility, adaptability, and creativity. Okay? So Filipinos have the ability to survive, which is manifested in our capacity for endurance despite difficult times and in our ability to get by on so little. Okay? We have that resilience, okay? Meron tayong tagang porsigido, okay? Hindi porket, na bago ang ating situation, especially in these times of the pandemic, okay? So, yes, tumataas ang cases, pero still, Filipinos, I think, are doing the best they can to survive, okay? Despite the limited resources that we have. Okay, so yeah, those are the strong points of the Filipino character. Now let's go to the the weakening strengths. Okay, the elements that weakens the Filipino character. Okay, so one is extreme personalism. Okay, so what do you mean by this? Okay, so Filipinos view the world in terms of personal relationships and the extent to which one is able to personally to relate to things and people determines our recognition of their existence and value. Parang yung kapag halimbawa, sa ibang bansa, mga artista na mga foreign artists, kahit 1/4 lang yung blood ng pagka-Pilipino nila, talagang proud tayo. Oy, Pilipino yan! Okay, so extreme personalism. So that's a very good example of that scenario. Okay, what else? Extreme family-centeredness. Okay, so it's not exactly a flaw. Okay, kasi sabi ko nga kanina, it's yung culture of close family ties is one of the culture that we have been born into. Okay, so actually it's one of the Filipinos' greatest strengths. Pero kung nagiging extreme, it becomes a serious flaw. Okay, so excessive concern for the family creates an in-group to which the Filipino is fiercely loyal to the detriment of concern for the larger community or the common good. It results in lack of concern for the common good and acts as a block to national consciousness. Kumbaga parang it talks about even despite siguro wrongdoings committed by family members, okay, because we are family-centered, extremely family-centered, okay? Kahit mali na ang ginagawa niya, okay? It's really hard for us to, parang pagbawalan sila na gawin ang maling bagay na yun. Because we really are family-centered. Kumbaga parang hanggang sa kamatayan, parang ganon. Alright? Pamilya pa din. Okay? And sometimes it interferes with the welfare of the common good or the common good of the rest of the people. Okay, so yes, it's really one of the Filipino strengths, yung close family ties. Okay, but sometimes to the extreme, okay, medyo nagiging close-minded tayo. Okay? And di na natin nakikita yung welfare ng ibang tao. Okay? What else? Lack of discipline. Yes! Kaya nga tumataas ang cases ng COVID natin kasi Filipinos have lack of discipline. Okay? So I think sa lahat ng aspeto or sa maraming aspeto, ang mga Pilipino, okay, mahirap dumisiplina. Alright? Because we have a casual and relaxed attitude towards time and space, which manifests itself in lack of precision and compulsiveness, in poor time management and procrastination. Yeah, I mean, because one culture, if I'm going to mention a certain culture, okay, it's the Japanese culture, and they value discipline that much. Okay, talagang yung pagiging disiplinado nila ay talagang naka-ingrain na sa kanila. Okay? So I hope we will also be able to, acquire that kind of discipline that the Japanese have. Alright? Next, passivity and lack of initiative. Okay? Filipinos are generally passive and lacking in initiative. Kaya nga maraming sumako sa Pilipinas. Kasi, alam mo yun, kung during that time, okay, nung we were occupied by the Spaniards, the Chinese, the Americans, or the Japanese, okay, we just parang hinayaan lang natin, okay. The Filipinos are generally passive and lacking in initiative. Kumbaga parang, sige, hayaan na natin yan. Yung ganyan mentality, yung hayaan na natin. Okay? One waits to be told what has to be done. Okay? Some students are like that, okay? They don't have the initiative. Kung hindi mo pa sasabihan, hindi pa magpapasa ng mga requirements, okay? So there is a strong reliance on others, leaders and government to do the things for us. This is related to the attitude towards authority. Filipinos are thus easily oppressed and exploited. O, diba? We still have others, okay? We still have other elements weakening the Filipino character, and that is colonial mentality. Okay? Since we have been occupied by different nationals before, okay, so we tend to think like them, okay, and the problem is, okay, they have really influenced our way of thinking to the point that we have forgotten our sense of patriotism to our own country. Okay, so Filipino culture is characterized by an openness to the outside, adapting and incorporating the foreign elements into our image of ourselves. So, nawawalan tayo ng identity. Sometimes, due to extreme patronage of other or foreign elements. Okay. Kung minsan, nakakalimutan na natin ang ating identity as Filipinos. Okay. And that's, I think, one of the characters that really, the Filipino character that is actually our weak points. Okay? Another is the kanya-kanya syndrome. Okay? Medyo may pagka-selfish ang mga Filipinos. Self-serving attitude, okay, that generates a feeling of envy and competitiveness towards others, particularly one's peers. Okay? So, who seem to have gained some status or prestige. Okay? Kanya-kanya, nainggit, kaya parang bahala ka dyan since, parang ganun ang klase ng mentality natin. Okay? So, the Filipino demonstrated the so-called crab mentality using the leveling instruments of chismis, intriga, and constructive criticism to bring others down. Okay? The kanya-kanya syndrome is also evident in personal ambition and drive for power and status that is completely insensitive to the common. Okay? Basta, I will fulfill my goal. Di bali na kung may masagasaan akong ibang tao. okay, which is not good. All right. Okay. And lack of self-analysis and self-reflection. There's a tendency of the Filipino to be superficial and even somewhat flighty. Okay? Ito yung ito yung nami-misinterpret sa atin. Like, for example, seryosong problema pero still we find time to laugh it about. Parang nasusobrahan sa pagiging positive at nasusobrahan sa humor, na nawawala na tayo ng focus dun sa solution to the problem. Okay? I mean, it's okay to joke. Okay? It's okay to joke about things, but there is a right time and a right place for that. Okay? So there is no felt need to validate our hypothesis or explanations of things. So thus we are satisfied with superficial explanations for and superficial solutions to problems. So those are Filipino characters that are our weak points. Okay? And I think that's the end of our discussion. So let me just give you a quotation from Robert Allen. Okay, so cultural differences should not separate us from each other, but rather cultural diversity brings a collective strength that can benefit all of humanity. So, ang sabi daw ni Robert Allen, okay, we do not see cultural differences as a way to, as a way to be, to be separated from others. Okay, we view cultural differences as an opportunity to, to gather, okay, different kinds of cultures and look into the positive sides and share it to other cultures. Okay? So, parang ang sinasabi ni Robert Allen, okay, we do not focus on the differences, but rather we use the differences as strengths, okay? We find strength in differences, okay, in order to be able to help and benefit all of humanity. All right? So that concludes my discussion on Module 7 and Module 8 of Gen 006 Ethics. So that concludes our discussion for Module 7 and Module 8 of Gen 006 Ethics. Alright, so please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more updates on the video discussions in our subject, Gen 006 Ethics. So thank you very much and have a great day ahead. Till next week, guys. Goodbye.